Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. Catholics across San Diego honored and celebrated Pope Francis with special memorial masses today. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says the late pontiff made a lasting impact on people of all ages among the local faithful.
A warm welcome on a day of remembrance and gratitude. At Mary, Star of the Sea Catholic Church in La Jolla, a memorial mass for Pope Francis was held this morning.
One of the great lessons that Pope Francis has taught the world is that love is more about actions than it is about words.
Father Patrick Mulcahy presided over the gathering, stressing how the Pope helped the poor and people on the margins. It was just one of many memorial masses held across the Roman Catholic Diocese of San Diego today to unite in prayer for the Pope.
Pope Francis put a face to the people that God calls us to love.
Catholic school students from the parish's affiliated school, Stella Maris Academy, attended the Mass, like 5th grader Roxy Watson.
Well, I really loved how we honored Pope Francis, all the wonderful things he did for us, and how he really showed our connection toward God.
4th grader Ryder Fisher was also there. He has some expectations for the next Pope.
He might try to do the same as Pope Francis, be kind to others and do a good job.
Watson has some ideas too.
I hope the Pope gives us hope and lets us all know we're loved.
The Vatican says the conclave to elect the next Pope will start May 7th. Jacob Ayers, KPBS News.
Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. I will be tracking partly cloudy and mild conditions here for the remainder of the week, both your Thursday and Friday. But as we head into Saturday and Sunday, I will be tracking some cooler temps in the forecast here for the weekend. But overall, taking an early peek at next week's forecast, it is looking sunny and it is looking nice. I'll have an updated look at that extended forecast coming up.
The city of Poway has filed a lawsuit against one of its own council members. Councilmember Tony Blaine is accused of destroying public records and refusing to comply with California's Public Records Act. The city says Blaine has conducted city business on private email accounts and in text messages. He denies discussing city business outside of his city email account, but Poway officials say they have documentation from people who received his emails and messages. The lawsuit follows the council censuring Blaine and an ongoing recall effort. For our next Why It Matters segment, we look at big news around how we get our water. Voice of San Diego CEO Scott Lewis explains.
We are right now seeing earthquake-level news in the water politics world. City leaders are so upset about the rising cost of water that they are proposing something shocking: dissolving the agency that provides our city with water. That agency is called the San Diego County Water Authority, and it recently said another 12% water rate increase could be coming next year. This is an increase to the wholesale cost of water in San Diego, so it raises the prices for cities, and they then will have to charge more to you to use it. Remember last month we talked about how hard it was for the city of San Diego to raise rates just 5.5%. It provoked Councilmember Marnie Von Wilpert to say something shocking.
I'm not comfortable supporting the pass-through rate here today because I'm not comfortable with the way the Water Authority has been doing business for so long, and I'm very, very worried about what's coming. I mean, do we even need to be a part of the Water Authority anymore? With our pure water systems? Maybe we don't.
I'll be honest, I thought she didn't know what she was talking about. The city of San Diego basically controls the county water authority. The idea of the city leaving the water authority would be like the captain of a cruise ship jumping off right as a storm approaches. A quick review. The reason water rates are going up is because of the giant deals the water authority made to buy water from farmers in Imperial Valley and to desalinate water from the ocean. Both were deals that San Diego leaders pushed the water authority to make. To be clear, the city cannot leave the water authority. In fact, the city was so mad about 2 other agencies leaving the water authority, it sponsored legislation to prevent others from leaving. And yet, as the water authority was considering future rate hikes, San Diego City Council member Sean Rivera sent a letter demanding that they change course. If the SDCWA cannot provide meaningful and immediate relief, then every structural and institutional option must be on the table. What is the purpose of a governance structure if it cannot meet the needs of the people it was created to serve? Yeah, now him too. The comments were so provocative that 10 former leaders of the Water Authority wrote a response. They don't deny the rates are high. It's the cost of having reliable water going forward. Here's what they wrote. Quote, "Today, we are all paying for exactly what the city and other regional leaders demanded decades ago, to never again experience the crippling impacts of drought." There's a big deal coming that's exacerbating this entire conversation. The city is building wastewater recycling. That will be very expensive and raise rates more. But when it's done, the city can buy half as much water from the water authority as it does now. That is a good thing for water conservation, but it will drive rates even higher and make the future of the water authority even more uncertain. I'm Scott Lewis for Voice San Diego, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. The effects of the fall of Saigon still reverberate within the Vietnamese diaspora. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen spent the last month working on a new KPBS video series, Fall of Saigon at 50, Stories of Loss, Legacy, and Identity. It takes a look back at the events half a century ago and re-examines the historical moment and the effects it's had across generations in the Vietnamese diaspora, including here in San Diego. Alex is joining me now. And Alex, how significant is April 30th for the diaspora?
Well, April 30th means different things for different people. For some, it's the end of a long conflict. For most people from the Vietnamese diaspora, it represents a loss of identity, a loss of country, a loss of homeland, and a loss of familial ties. And in this episode, we talk about that loss. Take a look.
Sad with my country.
Sadness in the loss of a motherland or a country.
There were definite traumas in terms of, the loss of country, the exile, the confusion. The impact of the fall of Saigon, and my parents told me the full story of the day of, and we were at Tan Son Nhut Airport. At the time it was just me. I was only 18 months old, so it was my mom, my dad, and me, and kind of there running through the airfield, and there's bombs and explosions, and trying to leave, and getting on the C-130 to get out of the airport, and like the cramped space, and seeing other planes, explode in the air. So there's a lot of vivid memories for my parents in that way.
I remember being at the airport at Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon back then. I remember it was a gray, drizzly day with myself, 5 years old, and my 3 younger siblings. I remember loud noises of gunfire, shooting, lots of screaming and yelling, and lots of Vietnamese refugees like myself sitting at the tarmac of the airport. We weren't inside the airport, we were on the runway. And I recall these big, black, loud helicopters. They were called Chinooks, and they had these double rotors. Real loud, we had no ear protection. Very windy because of the propellers, so we just had no protection underneath that. And I saw large black helicopters flying in front of us and landing several hundred feet away. I saw the back of the helicopter would go down the ramp, and I watched like people running into these helicopters, Vietnamese, and the ramp would go up, it would take off, and then another helicopter would land, really loud, really windy. And eventually, we were told it was our turn to run. And I ran toward the big black helicopter, the Chinook. And I'm not sure I was making it there because the propeller was so strong for a 5-year-old trying to run toward the helicopter.
We see a lot of people run away, and we want to run too because we know we will lose everything. We run at Bến Bạch Đăng, and we see the boat. And we get in there with the boat, 502 boat. Yeah, that boat just run 2 cycles, very, very slow.
There were definite traumas in terms of, you know, the loss of country, the exile, the confusion, not knowing where you're going to land. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she didn't know what happened. So after the war, she thought that we were dead. So, you know, not knowing what happened to your children, your grandchild, my mother and father being disconnected in terms of communication, I think that that time period, there's a lot of sense of worry, anxiety.
We have no clue where we're going. I just saw water. And we landed on the USS Midway. It was clear as yesterday. It's hard to forget these moments. And when we landed on the Midway, we got off, lots of refugees, lots of people standing around on top of the Midway. And so I saw helicopters getting off, pilots getting off, and I stood there and watched people push these helicopters overboard into the ocean. I guess to make space for either other helicopters or other planes to land. But right in front of me, there was these helicopters just going overboard to the ocean. It was quite an experience.
For some folks, there's some hidden pain around that day and the loss.
The weight of leaving family behind is still heavy in the hearts of my parents.
That's something that I think every family has to grapple with in terms of loss, and who got to come and who couldn't come.
Okay, so in this series, you feature firsthand accounts of that day in April 1975, but you're also featuring those who weren't yet alive then, but are still impacted. So why did you choose to focus on the multiple generational aspects of this historical moment?
Well, John, for young Vietnamese such as myself, there is a lot of duality about the fall of Saigon. People feel conflicted about it. For one hand, they don't want it to define who they are. And the second hand, it's also about preserving that legacy of our parents, our grandparents. And so this series talks about that duality and that legacy.
It is just so well done, Alex. Congratulations, and I know our audience will very much appreciate it. You can stream the series on our website at kpbs.org or on our YouTube channel.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, we take stock of President Trump's economic policies more than 100 days into his second term. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Consumers' uneasy feelings about the economy, tariffs, and their jobs were underscored by 2 reports released today. Karen Kaifa has the details from Washington.
President Donald Trump denying the impact of his tariffs after the U.S. economy posted its worst quarter since 2022.
I have to start off by saying that's Biden. That's not Trump, because we came in on January. This is quarterly numbers.
Analysts see it differently.
Tariffs and the anticipation of tariffs were really driving some of the drop in GDP that we saw.
The Commerce Department said the nation's gross domestic product, or GDP, the total value of products and services, shrank at a 0.3% annual rate during the first 3 months of 2025. It's a sharp reverse from 2.4% growth during the final 3 months of 2024. Businesses stepped up imports during the first quarter, likely to get ahead of Trump's tariffs. And when imports exceed exports, that drags down growth. Consumer spending was its weakest since mid-2023.
The bottom line is that the economy is slowing. Consumers are not spending as much as they used to, and that's really taking away some of the power away from the economy at the time when tariffs and fears of recessions are starting to increase.
A separate report from payroll processor ADP showed private sector employers added just 62,000 jobs in April, a steep drop-off from 147,000 in March. Particularly concerning to some economists, small businesses pulling back.
Those are businesses that really have the least amount of margins to be able to deal with tariffs, and that's one of the things we're very concerned about going forward, is that we could see red ink in the employment data as we get into May and June.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
In border towns like San Diego, it's common for people to work in the U.S. but live in Mexico. That means the workforce is often impacted by things like border wait times and federal politics. Todd Walters is the president of United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 135. He told our media partner KGTV he fears President Trump's policies could affect his union's 12,000 members in San Diego County.
Whether it's retail, whether it's hospitality, even the professional fields. We've got medical people who are living down there that come across. And I'm scared to death if that border gets closed or that border has severe delays, we're going to see an impact in all of San Diego.
Walters says there are thousands of workers who are binational and can legally work in the U.S. Many of them are U.S. citizens. So far, he says he hasn't seen people missing shifts or calling out. 2 local school districts are losing millions of dollars in federal mental health funding. The La Mesa, Spring Valley, and Lemon Grove school districts received letters from the U.S. Department of Education yesterday saying their mental health grants would not continue beyond this year.
The letter was notifying us that the goals of the grant no longer aligned with the goals of the federal government, and that it would therefore be discontinued effective December 2025.
The 5-year grant period began in 2023. La Mesa Spring Valley has used the money to hire 30 social workers and counselors. Those staff help with mental health crises, social skills, absenteeism, and family outreach. Lemon Grove has used it to hire 6 additional mental health staff. KPBS asked the department why it's ending the grants early. They said in an email that recipients were using the funds to, quote, implement race-based actions like recruiting quotas. Both districts say they plan to request the department reconsider. If they don't, district leaders say they'll look for other sources of funding to keep the staff on through at least the end of next school year. Social media has the power to influence people, and in Encinitas, an online debate on homelessness has spilled into council chambers and the community. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says it comes on the heels of a proposed expansion to the city's resource center.
For over 40 years, people in the community have relied on the Community Resource Center in Encinitas for food and supportive services. The center is in downtown Encinitas, within walking distance to the beach, a hospital, public transportation, and public restrooms. Lately, residents and business owners say they've noticed a surge of unhoused people in the area. Some blame the CRC.
There's an assumption being made that every person experiencing homelessness in Encinitas comes to CRC. That assumption is false.
John Van Cleef is the CEO of the CRC. He says the center's food pantry serves a total of 410 people, but only 85 of them are homeless. Assumptions about the center grew when a social media page began posting pictures and videos about the CRC and homeless in the area.
Someone took the time to create a cartoon that had CRC in the background and a hand throwing crumbs out to rats and seagulls. There can be a lot of views about people experiencing homelessness. There can be a lot of perspectives on the value of our building project or not, but to present people in this way, in such a dehumanizing and morally reprehensible way, really crossed the line.
That post has been taken down. The page goes by the name of Save Encinitas Now and has 15,000 followers. Their bio says they cover key issues like homelessness, housing, crime, and tourism with humor. But the issue has gained enough traction to spill over into city council chambers, especially as the CRC looks to expand their food pantry into the building next door.
It really disappoints me that there is an expansion being considered. With that expansion is only going to expand the problem that we have.
Donette Poole is a general manager of Honey's Bistro in downtown Encinitas. She has been at the bistro for 17 years and says she has seen the homeless population grow and become more aggressive.
I've already been attacked. I've had 2 employees that have had hands-on by mentally ill, by the homeless that are aggressive when we have cut off, we don't give them coffee anymore or food.
Last year's point-in-time count data showed a 68% increase in the unsheltered population in Encinitas. Data for 2025 has not been released. Poole says she has considered hiring private security, but can't afford it due to a drop in patrons.
I do think the city isn't doing enough. They're worried about plastic straws. They're worried about parking.
She wants the newly elected mayor to keep his campaign promise to increase patrols in the area. Mayor Bruce Ehlers says sheriff's deputies are doing their best to keep up with the issues. He wants to explore all options.
Either a security service that we hire or using the volunteer patrol, we may have an opportunity there to use employees/volunteers that are there for this reason, and they can be the eyes and ears for the police.
Ehlers says the city has an obligation to continue offering resources to those in need and enforcing the law. Additional security near the CRC will be discussed at the next council meeting in 2 weeks. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
As we head into tonight, I will be tracking some low clouds near the coast. Overnight temperatures will be a mix of mid to upper 50s, so a pretty mild start here for your early Thursday morning, but overall looks like it'll stay dry here as the sun comes up heading into Thursday. Overnight lows across the rest of the region, we will see a mix of mainly 40s and 50s. Some areas will see overnight lows in the 60s, and yes, and the higher elevations, some 30s here for tonight, so pretty chilly across the board. Future track radar showing that we will see some rainfall there across southern parts of Nevada, but overall it's going to be all about the sunshine here, especially along the interior. Now, some of that rainfall is going to try to work its way off to the south. So Los Angeles, right along the 5, we could see some showers there for your Thursday afternoon, but most of that rainfall will stay well north of San Diego, so no worries as far as any organized rainfall. Can't rule out the possibility of possibly a shower or two, but overall looks like it'll stay dry. Warmer across the region and dry here across Southern California for the most part for your Thursday. So for tomorrow, lots of sunshine in the forecast. Highs will be a mix of 60s and 70s. So overall, pretty decent Thursday afternoon forecast. On Friday, more rainfall, but that's primarily going to be well across the interior here. But overall, looks like it's going to be mild. But yes, cooler weather pulls into the forecast, especially on Sunday. We'll see this big dip in the jet stream, pulling much cooler air, especially across Nevada. But we could see some of that cooler air being funneled, trying to funnel itself towards the coastline. So we will be watching this very closely. Here's an updated look at your extended forecast, tracking highs in the 60s, lows in the 50s. We'll see partly cloudy skies before the sunshine returns as we head into next week. Inland forecast, we'll see a mix of 70s before the 60s, temperatures dropping in the 60s for the weekend. And then after that, here looking at the mountain forecast, we'll see temperatures in the 50s, maybe even some snow chances on Sunday. So heads up for that. That's that cooler air. And then we'll see 90s before dropping to the 60s in the desert on Sunday.
A new exhibit brings Huichol culture to the Oceanside Museum of Art. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson has a look.
Lines that you're creating. Okay, you don't need to overlap.
Natalie Gonzalez learned to make sicuri, or God's eyes, as a kid in Guadalajara. As an adult in San Diego, she turned back to the vibrant concentric squares of yarn.
I once got home from work on a Saturday night and I saw like these 2 chopsticks and I had yarns like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And the rhythm of doing this, the act of weaving and following this pattern, I noticed that makes me like calm.
It became therapy for her.
And then suddenly when I look on my side, I had like 30 of them. like a box. It's like, what am I gonna do with all this?
What she did was make art, big hanging panels of them, and she taught others how to make them at workshops. 30 turned into hundreds that now form a towering wave structure inside the Oceanside Museum of Art. Not a place Sikuri would normally hang. They're sacred to the indigenous Huichol people.
They don't do this as an art. They do this for offerings and also to use it like for protection for children until they reach the age of 5 years old, and each year it's a different color, and it's just for them until they're healthy enough.
They also place them wherever there's life: water, caves, crops.
Like here is to the land. Thank you, Mother Earth, for doing this. So this is my way to say to Oceanside, thank you so much for everything you have offered me.
The Sikuri made by Gonzalez's workshop participants are as diverse as Oceanside's community. You can see them at the museum through late September. Katie Heisen, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. KPBS Midday Edition is all about arts and culture. Beth Accomando reviews new movie releases, and Julia Dixon-Evans has your weekend arts preview. Of course, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.